Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the March 26th Commissioner Student Advisory Council. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And our first item is a welcome from our Interim Commissioner of Education, Robin Fields Kinney. Commissioner.
Good afternoon and welcome to all of our students who are joining us today for the Students Advisory Council. Big news happened this last week, and in case you haven't heard, the Kentucky Board of Education, after lots of interviewing, planning, and talking to some excellent candidates, have now selected our next commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Education. They worked very hard in considering stakeholder feedback as we went through our interviewing process. And part of that came from the Student Advisory Council. So we thank you so much for your participation in helping us to really look for those attributes that will make our next commissioner great. I'm very pleased to announce I've actually been with the commissioner, I guess we would call him the commissioner-elect, this morning. He is currently the chair of the local superintendent's advisory council, so a council very much like the one that you're participating in, except it is for our local superintendents that serve in each of our local school districts. So he actually is the chair of that meeting and was elected to serve in that capacity by his peers, which I think is a compliment to him in the support that he has from local school districts. But his name is Dr. Robbie Fletcher. Dr. Fletcher is currently the superintendent in Lawrence County and has been there for a little bit. I think since 2014, he's been the superintendent in Lawrence County Schools. And I don't know, do we have anybody from Lawrence County on today? I don't know if there's anybody as part of our membership that's on today, but certainly I will give a shout out to the selection of a candidate from 606. So that's great. Dr. Fletcher has his educational degrees from both Morehead State University and the University of Kentucky. He's also worked as a part-time instructor at Asbury University. He was a principal at Sheldon Clark High School. He's also been a middle school principal, so he's served as principal in both a middle school and a high school capacity. He's also been at, and he's also a guy for numbers. He's been a math teacher at both middle school and high school. I think he was at Bourbon County for a little bit and at Williamstown Independent. So he is good with numbers. I've had the pleasure of working with him in my prior role in the Office of Finance and Operations. So he really understands school funding and how that works, and also has a good eye and understanding of assessment and accountability. As the board considered the qualities that they wanted for a commissioner, they really broke it down into 4 categories. And I'm really pleased to say that we think that Dr. Fletcher really epitomizes a lot of these qualities that the board was interested in. And those 4 qualities or 4 categories, very briefly, are they wanted someone who could be an ambassador for public education, someone that could be a statesperson, work with our General Assembly, really advocating for the good, all the good in public education. They wanted an expert instructional leader, someone that knew about what happens in the classroom and the importance of your teachers in the classroom and the delivery of state-of-the-art education for our students. Really looking at vibrant learning experiences and especially literacy and numeracy, and also supporting more underserved learners and their families. We were seeking a very strong organizational leader, someone that can act as the head of the state education agency, which is here at the Department of Education, and continuing the Kentucky Board of Education's initiative of Kentucky United We Learn. Again, focusing on vibrant learning experiences for our students, interacting with our communities, engaging our communities, and also being innovative in assessment. And then finally, a visionary leader, someone that's not afraid to try new things, all for the good of our students and our staff out in our local school districts, and really just kind of moving us forward, continuing our momentum of where we are. I can also share with you that maybe the best thing that I've experienced already in interacting with Dr. Fletcher is he's a very genuine and authentic person. And every conversation includes at its very core students. He is a student-focused leader. And I will share with you during the interview process, he's very interested in learning more about this advisory council and sort of the work that you do to help advise the commissioner. And so I'm really pleased that we have, that the Board of Education has made this selection. Our next steps, as I think we have shared with you before, is that Dr. Fletcher will be going through the confirmation process, which is conducted by the Kentucky Senate. And we've already started having conversations about what that might look like, but it will happen sometime between now and April 15th, which is sine die, was just a fancy word to say this session's over. So we expect in the next couple of weeks, Dr. Fletcher will be confirmed, and he will actually join us in his very official capacity starting July 1st. So that is the big news here at the department. We know we had a fairly quick search, but we're very, very pleased with the end results. So I know he will look forward to meeting the members of the Student Advisory Council, and will certainly be interested in all the work that you're doing and learning from you, as I've had the opportunity to do in my interim role. So that's all I really have, Dr. Jones. Before we go to roll call, though, I have an idea for our icebreaker this time.
Sounds great. What are you thinking?
Okay, so for your icebreaker, I thought it would be fun for us to think about if you could take a year and live inside as a character in a book that you have read. What would that book be? And I've been thinking of it not from the recent, but a children's book, something that really intrigued me when I was a child. And I will start off and share with you, and I'm just going to tell you the character, and then by the end, we'll see if anybody's even heard of this character. I'm going to show my age a little bit here, but there was a series of children's book called Pippi Longstocking. And Pippi was brave and courageous, and she was very adventurous. So if I could live for a year in the world of Pippi Longstocking, I think that would be a tremendous amount of fun. So Dr. Jones, if I can ask you to call the roll, and I invite others to share with me and the rest of us, if you could live for a year as a character in a book, where would you live and why?
Thank you. I look forward to hearing the responses. I will call roll. When I say your name, please say present. That'll help us on the roll call. And if you are unable to unmute, then please indicate in the chat that you are here. So again, say present or put in the chat. And then as Commissioner Kenny invited you to share about where you would like to, a book you'd like to live in for a year, if you could, as a character. Ava Benson. Reese Blakeman. Thought Reese had joined. Owen
Can you
Borden.
hear me?
There you are. Yes.
Sorry about that. Present. If I could live anywhere in a book, I think I would live, there's this book called The Phantom Tollbooth that's just about this like imagination land that it like becomes anything that you can imagine. I think I would probably live there and just see what I could come up with.
Thanks. I hadn't heard of that one. Sounds interesting. Owen Borden has sent a note not joining. Cameron Breyer.
I'm here. If I were to live in a book for a year, I'd want to live in this book called The Land of Stories. It's kind of like a fictional world where all of like the fairy tales are real life.
Thanks, Cameron. Owen Cody. Hunter Combs. I see you've put in the chat you're present. Are you able to unmute? And if not, I can read your comment that you're not a big book reader, but who doesn't love a good Dr. Seuss book? I'd take any of them. Thanks, Hunter. Jude Dalla. Jude has shared, would love to be Annabeth from Percy Jackson or Alex from Land of Stories. Thanks, Jude. Justin Dunning. Rima Dutt.
Present, and I would probably say like Geronimo Stilton, those children's books, because he was always out on an adventure. It looked really fun.
Thanks, Rima. Manas Garla.
I'm here, and if I could go to a book, I'd probably choose the Magic Treehouse series because every book they got to travel to a new place and a new time, so I think it'd be cool.
A lot of adventure astounding options. Thanks, Manas. Nicholas Hazlett.
Present. I actually have two books. One is a children's book, the other one's an adult book. The children's book I would pick would always be the Busy Town books. I remember as a kid just looking at every page. And even though if you didn't really follow the story, there's always something that you could get from it. Just everything going on in the pages. In more of an adult read, currently that I'm reading is Silas House's Southernmost. And being from Eastern Kentucky, it's a really good read, really about how all communities come together. And I really enjoy it.
Thanks for sharing this. Onette Irakiza. Trey Jackson. Peter Jefferson.
Present. And I think I would go children's book wise. I had this book when I was a kid about rockets and Apollo, the program that the US used to send people to the moon. And as a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. So I think I would want to live and prepare to be an astronaut. And then at the end of the year, I would get to do the mission, and that'd be really cool.
Does sound pretty cool. Thanks, Peter. Shraman Kaur. Vijay Karthikeyan.
Present. I think that I would like to be a character from one of my favorite comics, Big Nate. It was just a funny guy in school, and I think that'd be interesting.
Thanks, Vijay. Seth Langford.
Hi, I think I would like to live in a book called The Unteachables because I really like the classroom environment that it was set up.
Thanks, Seth. Danica Love.
Here, I would say I'd probably want to live in a Harry Potter book.
Thanks, Danica. Gabriella McAdams. Constance Ray Martin. Anopa Musoni. RJ Osborne. Tanvi Rakesh. Tommy's put in the chat that Tommy would like to say Percy Jackson too. Daniel Ratley.
Present. I would also have to pick a Harry Potter book.
Another Harry Potter option, Jocelyn Reddick. Amy
Here and sorry.
Excuse me, go ahead.
I would choose, oh, thank you. I would choose Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. It's a fairy tale dystopian retelling and just a big adventures like the romance and then the big decision survival is just very intriguing.
Not heard of that one. Sounds interesting. Thanks, Jocelyn. Amy Roblero Perez. Sophia Staples.
Hi, I'm on VJ's computer, but I would probably want to be like a side character from Harry Potter. Like I wouldn't want to be in any of like the fighting stuff, but the magic part would be cool.
All right, another Harry Potter vote. Ian Swenson. Sarah Umbarger. Austin Vidito. Carly Watts.
Here, and I would probably want to be in one of the children's book series of Junie B. Jones.
Thanks, Carly. Bentley White.
Present, I would probably either be in a Harry Potter book somewhere. I guess I would be on second choice list because my first choice would probably be in a memoir called Deaf Utopia, and it's just like this guy in this book been all over the place. He has an interesting life, so I would kind of like to be somewhere in that book.
Thanks, Bentley. Elliot Llanos Medina.
Hi, present. I probably would like to be the main character of Boulevard. I don't think I have a translation to English, but it's super sweet. It's a love story, and you'll be crying all the time. I'd love to be there.
Thanks, Elliot. India Young. India present. I would want to live in the Fancy Nancy books. I had every one of them in my collection as a child, and I loved them. Nancy was always very sassy and spunky, and I would love to be able to embody those qualities daily. Thanks for sharing that in the chat, India. And lastly, Joshua Zizek.
Here, if I had to live in a book, I would probably pick the Inheritance Cycle series.
All right, thank you. That completes the roll call, Commissioner. And at this time, I can move quickly into, or excuse me, I'll pause and reflect on the options shared there, Commissioner.
Well, thanks so much for everyone participating. I have been writing as fast as I could for some of these to check out myself. I have heard of some of them, but not all of them. Of course, I'm a big Harry Potter fan too. And who wouldn't want to love? I think it's so interesting that many people, because I asked this questions of some staff here at the department as well, and they all said the same thing about the Harry Potter thing. They don't want to be the main character because it's just too much responsibility and really stressful. But if they could sort of be living in that world and watching all the magic, it would be super cool. So thank you for indulging me and just sharing a little bit of your favorites from your childhood.
Yes, thank you. I agree. Several titles I'm not familiar with, but look forward to exploring further. So thank you all. Just as another administrative item, we will move and approve our summary from our last meeting. This was emailed to you all. I will share the link here in the chat as well as on the screen, but I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the floor. So I'll need someone to offer a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I think I heard Nicholas. Nicholas, did you say?
Yes.
Thanks, Nicholas. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Peter. I think I heard a second. And we'll just do a quick voice vote if everyone in favor of approving the minutes as written, just give a voice, just say aye or yes, share in the chat. I'll just pause for a moment.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any objections or anyone opposed? And hearing none, the motions have been approved from our February 27 meeting of the Commissioner Student Advisory Council. And next up, we have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Damian Sweeney from our Office of Teaching and Learning, and he will be leading us in our Mindful Minute activity. So Dr. Sweeney, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Dr. Jones. And I have to get in on the welcoming inclusion activity from Interim Commissioner Kinney. And my favorite book is The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. I think living in nature, living among the animals, leading safaris, allowing other people to be connected to nature would be a dream. From that book, he says, to track is to discover that nature is alive and speaks a language all its own. I think this is relevant for today's conversation. We have forgotten that life holds a unique story for us all. What the native people call your medicine way, something that only you can give to the world. Inside you is the wild part of you that knows what your gifts, purposes, and missions are. So that's my vote, The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life. All right, as we jump in today, I'm going to ask you to take a few deep breaths. I would like our adults to do this as well. I promise you that if you join me, you will feel a little bit more connected to our conversation, a little bit more engaged, and a little bit less stressed. Okay, so we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds and then breathe out for 4 seconds, and I'll count us off. All right, take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a deep breath out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 2 more of those. Take a deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And a deep breath out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Deep breath in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Deep breath out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this will feel really good. Take one arm, put your hand on your elbow, press your arm back for 4 seconds. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, and really push it back. Let's do the other one. Really push it back as far as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now you can just shake it out. All right, hopefully you feel a little bit less stressed, a little bit more engaged with us as well, a little bit more present. All right, so I've got a few things for you today. I know that you are most likely getting really excited about your upcoming spring break. If you are, and you're going somewhere fun, or you're excited about something in particular, feel free to share that in the chat box. Right, so I want to acknowledge that you get a break, you deserve a break. All of our educators deserve a break. I know all of you have been working hard. We appreciate all of you, whether you're educators or students. All right, so feel free to throw that in the chat box, and then we're going to get into a couple of prompts for today. The first one is just about you, all right? And when I say you, I'm talking about every single person on this call, okay? Students and adults alike. So we know that people are often really hard on themselves and often forget that we are perfectly ourselves. That doesn't mean there's not still room to grow, but it's important that we show ourselves self-love. So feel free to come off mute or feel free to put it in the chat box. But what is something that makes you uniquely you that others may not know? What's something that makes you uniquely and perfectly you that others may not know? I'll model and tell you something that others may not know about me. I'm a soccer coach. I've coached at the club level, the high school level, the college level as well. I'm also an adjunct professor, and I married my girlfriend from high school. All right, so those are 3 things that you may not know about me. What are some things that we may not know about you, but that make you perfectly and uniquely who you are? Again, feel free to come off mute and share or put in the chat box. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. I was going to say the things, I'll just give 2 that I think make me, just me, is that I moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I feel like I'm pretty good at entering new social situations, and I enjoy making new friends as opposed to kind of staying in one group. And then within my family, I'm very fortunate to have a younger sister who I have a great relationship with. A lot of my friends, don't like their siblings or don't get along very well with them, but the 2 of us just work very well with each other and make each other better.
That's awesome. I'll tell you that the social part of your response that's a skill, you know? So your unique experiences of moving around helped you build that skill to be able to learn about different groups of people, find ways to connect with people and create those friendships. Thanks again for sharing. Also really proud of you for your connection with your sister. That's great. What's something else that maybe we don't know? Nicholas.
I would say, Mr. Sweeney, I try, which is kind of an old soul thing for me to do, but I always try and harken back to my grandparents and, you know, older family, whether I knew them or I had them sometime in life, because I feel like what they contributed to my family and to the community. I mean, some of them were teachers, coal miners, you name it. That gives me kind of a foundation of what I should do in life. And kind of what Peter said, I have a 9-year-old sister, and I never thought I'd have a sibling. I was 9.5 when she was born, so I kind of had a, I don't know, a epitome of like, I need to take care of her, I need to be the guardian, because I didn't think I'd get this opportunity. So it's a very special bond that we have.
Amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. There's something else that makes you uniquely you. Commissioner?
I think I would say that I have some very special lifelong friendships. They are girlfriends that I met very early in my career that I'm fortunate to have, that I can tell anything and they can tell me. They hold me accountable and they expect the same from me. And I think it is one of the greatest treasures in life that we make time for each other, and every single month we get together so that we can be present with each other and enjoy each other's company. And I'm very loyal in that regard to have those lifelong friendships.
Yeah, that's really special. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'll just say that there are lifelong health benefits to having friendships like that, and to making sure that you are setting aside time for those social relationships. So that's great modeling, a great example, and good for you for staying connected with those friends for so long. Seth, let's hear from you.
I think something that I excel in is my ability to describe emotions and more abstract things. I think that I'm a very fluent poet, and my poetry really takes a turn when I take the time to see things from a different lens, a different way of explaining them.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I saw that Dr. Tucker just put something in the chat box, and when you talked about your love for poetry, that immediately made me think of him, because just yesterday he was quoting a poem to Ed Week, which is a national publication from Langston Hughes. So thanks for sharing, and I would love to read some of your poetry in the future. I hope you're willing to share. Some of the things in the chat box that have kind of surprised me. I see that Jude is a Formula One fan and a soccer fan. I know I love documentaries and that kind of thing. So I've been watching this cool documentary about Messi and his trip to the World Cup in 2022 and his World Cup final. And I know that there are documentaries on Netflix about Formula One. I've not personally seen them, but I know that they're supposed to be really good. Hopefully they're appropriate. Only watch it if it's appropriate. Reese says that you've been farming from a very young age and enjoy the old-fashioned lifestyle acquainted with the homegrown personality. That's awesome. India has been doing public speaking competitively since the 4th grade. Wow. And you're self-taught. I'm now nationally ranked in different programs and have a nonprofit called Just My Voice, where I mentor students on public speaking skills and get them involved in other competitions. Oh my gosh, Just My Voice. You got to throw a link in or something. That's incredible. Hunter loves soccer, just like me. Even though I work on this council, I also play soccer for my schools. First ever inaugural soccer team. Oh, right, defensive back. Even though it's been in my life for 1 year, it's changed your life so much. That's great. Thank you for sharing. And I have a strong connection to music, piano for 10 years, and wow, 2 instruments, saxophone for 6. I use music to help me ground myself. Another little known fact about me is I do a lot of music counseling sessions. So I lead adults in helping them incorporate music with students. So you and I share that love for music. Let me go back to Dr. Tucker. He says he loves fine dining and cooking expensive meals that serve as fundraisers. I have great appreciation for the arts. As a matter of fact, our teams helped create another campus for the Governor's School for the Arts, which provides over 250 more Kentucky students access to the arts. So thank you for not only saying you love it, but helping us put our money where our mouth is on that. And then Dr. Tucker's helping to restore a museum in his hometown, which is located in the Mississippi Delta. All right. And lastly, Danica says, I love playing any and all sports, especially softball and spike ball. I think I know what that is. Is that the one with the net on the ground? I think everybody's kind of around that net and spike. I think that's it. I also have 2 younger sisters who inspire me daily. All right, thank you. Yes, I got it right. All right, there's one other thing I wanted to talk to you all about. Thank you so much for sharing those things. But we've been thinking a lot about just unique learning opportunities, vibrant learning experiences is what we call them. And when I was in high school, I read this book called Night by Elie Wiesel, and he is a Holocaust survivor. Recently, I had a chance to go to Washington, D.C. and go to the Holocaust Museum. And that really brought so much learning, new learning to me. So I've been just thinking about vibrant learning experiences and what makes us go even deeper with the things that we're learning about. So my question to you is this. What is your favorite thing that you're learning about right now? It can be in school, it can be on your own. What is that favorite thing? And then what are some ways that we can go deeper with those things? I was recently in a classroom in Fayette County just last week in an AP African American History course, and kids had the opportunity to demonstrate their learning. They could write a song, they could create a dance, they could create an infographic, a diorama, they could do news clips, create a children's book, they could create a game, they could create a short play, or even use slides to present on what they were learning. So we're not only interested in what's your favorite thing you're learning about right now, but again, what are some ways that we can go deeper with that thing to help deepen your knowledge? Please share that. You can use your mic or your chat box. Seth, go ahead.
Right now in AP Seminar, I'm writing a paper on antidepressant use in teenagers and the way it negatively impacts them. And in part, the paper is about moral courage and the courage to stand up for each other and for the younger generation. I think that this is just immensely important, and it's been an honor to be able to research it in depth. I think to deepen my learning, I would like to, I don't know, maybe just find more articles, more perspectives, because my paper seems very limited in perspective. I would like to do a more holistic search of what moral courage and abuse means.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's so powerful. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share? Or you can even tell us one of your favorite learning experiences this year. This is your opportunity to give your teachers some flowers too. What's something that you've learned this year that's really helped you get deeper than you expected, and really help keep you engaged? All right, Nicholas. Oh, go ahead. And then I'll read Nicholas's.
Um, the I'm currently reading a book by Howard Zinn. I may have heard of it's the People's History of the United States. While it's not necessarily a history textbook, it is an interesting new kind of history book that I haven't ever read before, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I think it gives me good additional perspectives on some of the stuff I'm learning in my AP US history class.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Nicholas says that he's got a great love for Eastern Kentucky history, especially that of my home region, of the Big Sandy region. I've been there. It's awesome. He says his papa was a local historian and educator. I'd like to see a greater emphasis on local history in our public schools or privately, as so many residents, especially youth people of Appalachia, have not been exposed to our culture and history. It's a really good point. We teach a lot about culturally sustaining pedagogy, and that part of that is requiring that we teach about the local communities that our kids are in. So that's a perfect example. Jude says, I'm only taking 2 classes at the moment. Wow. But I'm really enjoying learning about anatomy and physiology, as the content I learn directly impacts what I see at my hospital internship. I get to learn science, but I get to learn the science behind diagnoses and the reason behind certain symptoms that I see in patients. I'm also learning a ton about different medications. Awesome. All right, you all, continue to think about just those experiences, those vibrant learning experiences that you may have had or that may help deepen your knowledge down the road. Share those with your school, your teachers, your principals, your counselors, etc. Let them know what would help you, and hopefully we can get some of those things to happen in Kentucky schools. I want to leave you with one last bit of advice. All right. We started the conversation with talking about, we know that people are sometimes hard on themselves. And we also know that anxiety, worry, all of that is really heavy right now for a lot of people. And so my last tip for you is, if you're worried about a specific situation, write everything down that you're worried about, and then cross out the things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can. I hope this was helpful to you. You all have a great break. Again, you deserve it. Your educators deserve it. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dr. Sweeney, for the exercise and the reflective questions and that mindful minute activity. At this time, we will move forward in our discussion today. And some comments on the chat. Also, thank you to Dr. Sweeney. We will move forward with a discussion on chronic absenteeism, and we are pleased that 3 people from KDE are here to join us and lead us in this discussion. We have Rhonda Devine from the Office of Finance and Operations, and we have Christina Watford and Florence Chang from our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support. I will turn it over to them. Just let me know when to advance the slides.
Okay. And thank you so much. And when the commissioner was mentioning about a character in a book, I was a middle school teacher, and the first thing I thought of was Meg in A Wrinkle in Time, where she was so protective of her family and went to other worlds just to save her father. So I thought she was a strong person, and it's just brought back memories when she asked us to think about that. My name's Rhonda Devine, and I'm with the Office of Finance and Operations, Division of District Support, and I have the Student Tracking Data Branch. And what we do is track anything that touches attendance. So when you first begin school, back when you're in kindergarten, they give you a student number, and that information is put into our Kentucky Student Information System. And currently we're using Infinite Campus, and that tracks your progress and your classes and your transportation and your enrollments and withdrawals throughout your entire career in school. And so that is how we base our funding. And that's what my office really looks at. And so in looking at the data, and you can go to the next slide, we're going to look at chronic absenteeism. This is just chronic absenteeism at a glance, and we're going to go back to where we started in 2017-18 school year and just look at the percentages and talk about a few things. You can see there's a gap just from looking at the slide. So we'll talk through that. You can advance to the next slide. Okay, so we're talking about chronic absenteeism, and people usually ask, well, what's the difference between truancy and chronic absenteeism? So basically, when you are in school, you're given a certain amount of parent notes and doctor notes, and then once you use those up, so those are excused absence, then you move into an unexcused absence, and that is when we talk about truancy. So you've already used up those parent notes and your doctor notes, and now you've had over 6 unexcused absence. That's what we call truant. Chronic absenteeism is all of it combined. So you don't have to just be unexcused. It's all of your excused absence, your doctor notes, plus moving into that unexcused. So you've missed school for over 10%, and it really runs about 15 absence per year, maybe 17. So that's kind of when we talk about chronic absenteeism, it's all of it. You're not present at school. You can go to the next slide. So we started looking 2017-18 on chronic absenteeism, and you can see the first year that we tracked it was at 17.63%. And then again, the following school year we tracked it, and it was right about the same percentage, 17.82%. And then the next slide, please. You'll notice that 1920, we don't have any information, because what we did in Infinite Campus, we basically froze our funding because of the pandemic. We really couldn't do that typical seat time attendance and performance-based attendance. We moved to a blended learning and participation tracking, which really didn't give us the true seat time that we need to track chronic absenteeism. And then the next year, again, we didn't have a good tracking mechanism due to the pandemic. So we still had our funding was frozen using that blended learning and participation. And then the following year, we started getting back into attendance, but we still had these new quarantine services, and that would be the 21-22 school year, which is the next slide. We still don't have what we need really to track chronic absenteeism, because we had some different coding and things still for COVID. And then 22-23, the next slide, this is really the first year that we've had a true tracking of chronic absenteeism, and you can see that it's at 29.81%. So prior to COVID, it was running in the 17%, and now after COVID, we see this 29.81% rise in, we've had a big rise in the chronic absenteeism, and we're looking to see, we'll be able to track it again at the end of this school year, and then really make a comparison and look again. So we don't have that information just yet, but we will as soon as the school year's up. So with that, I'm going to move to Christina Weeder and her team to ask some important questions that they wanted to reach out and talk to the group about.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry, yep, I realized that right as I started talking. So thank you so much. I appreciate you all allowing us to be here and to meet with you all today. I am Christina Watford. I am on the Persistence to Graduation team here at the Department of Education. And one of the things that we do is We do some research and presentations on chronic absenteeism. And so we were really excited for the opportunity to be able to sit and to talk with you as the Student Advisory Council. I came to the Department of Education after a 15-year career as a school counselor, and then was a teacher for 5 years prior to that. So I have, a lot of experience working with students on attendance issues. I do want to go back, like everybody else has done, and tell you that if I could be a character in a book, I need them to create a school counselor's position at Hogwarts. And when it becomes open, I am applying, and I'm willing it to come into existence and to be able to go and to fill that role. So before I jump in, I do want to give my counterpart, Florence Chang, an opportunity to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I am Florence, and I also work with the Persistence to Graduation team. Thank you all so much for your input today that we're going to get from you. For the book character, I struggle. I love A Wrinkle in Time, like Rhonda, but I think actually now I would pick the character from Eat, Pray, Love, Elizabeth Gilbert's book, because I love to travel, and I've never been to Indonesia or India, and so I would love to go to those places. So yeah, that is my book, and I think we're going to go to the next slide, and Christina is going to launch. Yeah.
Yes. So to start our conversation off today, we have just a little 2-question poll. So if you feel brave, we're going to invite you to drop your answer in the chat. This is just going to kind of help us to gauge perception on attendance issues. Now, I know that you all are probably very high achieving students, and you don't want to be wrong. I want to assure you that it's okay to not know the answer to these questions. In fact, until I started doing some research on this, I didn't even know what the answers were to the questions. So you only get bravery points right now. There are no points for right or wrong, just points awarded for being brave by dropping something in the chat. So the first question is, how many absences per month does research show impacts learning? So any guess that you have, drop it in the chat. The number of absences per month that impacts learning. See some starting to come in. Okay. The numbers are ranging right now between 3 and 5. I'm giving people just a second. There we go. Okay, we've got some more coming in. So we're ranging between about 3 and 5. Research shows that as little as 2 absences per month actually impacts learning. So that might not seem like a whole lot when we break it down by the month, but if you're looking at a school year spanning from August until May, that's 10 months, the cumulative total of missed days, if you miss 2 per month, would be 20 days. So for elementary school students, you're talking about 20 days of instruction in those foundational skills, your literacy and reading skills, your numeracy and math skills, your writing skills, social skills, opportunities just for like guided direction and guided practice that students are missing out on. And then at the middle school and the high school level, depending on how your schedule is set up, we generally average somewhere between 5 and 8 class periods that students are engaged in. So depending on your schedule type, that would break down to between 100 and 160 class period absences throughout the school year. And that is a lot of missed instruction, right? So for all students, regardless of the grade level, when we're missing instruction, a lot of times that instruction, it either can't be made up, or if it can be made up, it creates another obstacle and another wrinkle that the student has to navigate around, because in addition to all of that missing work that they are trying to get caught up on, they also now have to figure out if there is an opportunity for that instructional component to be made up, how are they going to do that? So I share that information with you just for you to use as food for thought as we move ahead in the conversation. And you can go on to the next slide.
Okay, we have another question for you all to be pondering. So we work with a group called Attendance Works. They're a national a very highly regarded group around this topic. They've been studying attendance for many, many years, and they study when schools have different rates of chronic absenteeism. So they categorize schools that are high or extremely high chronic absenteeism as like those schools that have at least 20 or 30% of their kids chronically absent by the end of the year. So looking at last year's data, which is the last official data that we have from Kentucky's data sets, what percent of schools in Kentucky would you guess has high or extremely high chronic absenteeism last year? And before you guess, I'll give you what the number was pre-pandemic. So before COVID, that last year, it was 5% of schools were high or extremely high. So now what do you think it is? And just, you can use the chat, come off mute, whatever you want to do. Okay, you see a bunch of guesses coming in. Let's see, 8, 20, 28, 10 to 15, 30. I did the same activity with a group of Family Resource Youth Center service coordinators last week. They had the exact same range as you all. So adults that work in our current schools, we're guessing about 10 to 30%. Okay, next slide. The actual answer to this is 75%. So our last year's data showed that 75% of schools in Kentucky would now be categorized as high or extremely high chronic absenteeism. So what that means is before the pandemic, it was about 1 in 20 kids were at a school that was high or extremely high in chronic absenteeism. Now 3 out of 4 are in a school that would be considered high or extremely high in chronic absenteeism. And that clearly has implications for many issues that we want to talk to you all about today. So next slide. Okay, so I'm going to toss it back to Christina.
Yep, sorry about that. So when we started putting this presentation together, the one thing that Florence and I really wanted to focus on was having a conversation with this advisory council about chronic absenteeism, because based on the statistics that were shared with you earlier by Ms. Devine, chronic absenteeism rates have risen almost 69% from the end of the 17-18 school year to the end of the 22-23 school year. We share this information with the advisory council because it directly affects you, right? And it's affecting your generation. And we believe that your insights are really just a crucial part of the conversation. We need to hear what you all see that you face and that your fears or that your peers are facing. We also want to hear your perspective about chronic absenteeism and absenteeism in general, because your feedback may very well play a role in the strategies that the state, districts, and school level teams are putting together in order to try and effectively combat this problem. So we want to just give you an opportunity to teach us for a little while. And it's a chance for you to share what you see is happening, what you know to be factors that are contributing to absenteeism from a student's perspective, and then any ideas that you have for addressing those. So we have 2 questions listed, and then we've also got a few sub questions that we're going to throw in there as well for the sake of discussion. But just starting out with that first question, and again, you can come off of mute and talk to the group, or if you want to put some comments in the chat. But from your perspective, what are the reasons that students are not attending school?
And I see a hand up. So
yes.
Let's see, a couple hands up. Manus?
So I think a big part of the kind of skyrocket in these absent numbers is because of how normalized it was during the pandemic to skip school because we were just on computers. You were just kind of free to leave whenever you wanted. And it was like for 2 years straight, you just kind of had that freedom. And I don't think people really adjusted back to like losing that freedom. And so it kind of translated into in-person learning as well.
Thank you. Nicholas?
I really can't speak for the whole state, but at least what we've seen here at Paintsville, because we're such a small school, everybody knows everybody. And especially during COVID, like Monis said, a lot of people just tuned out. There was no interest. And I think what we did see, and I'm not generalizing this about parents, but this is a subsection of absenteeism, is that parents during COVID started regulating their kids' education. And then once they came back into the school, they started, putting in these barriers. It was like, well, they're not learning anything. They're just, the parents are inserting a opinion that isn't fully recognized, I would say, in some ways about absenteeism, and that there's really no drive from certain parents to send their kids to school on certain days. Like we are on spring break right now, and last Friday, to make sure that nobody just dropped off that very last day before break, they made sure that every single teacher had some kind of test or assessment on Friday. So if you miss it, you get a 0 in the grade book. You cannot remake it, even if you have a medical excuse. Like they made sure that everybody came to school on Friday. And I'm not saying those kinds of incentives or, strict requirements are necessary, but I think something really needs to be examined of what will bring people back to school that's not harsh, but also not demanding on the educators themselves.
Thank you. Next person who has their hand raised up is it Manas? Manas?
Shared and
Yeah,
I put my hand down, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry about that. So there are a
Peter.
couple of things that were dropped into the chat too. Majority of absences I see at my school are due to parents. When I volunteered in the front office, the majority of tardies was the parents being apathetic towards their attendance. Many of my peers have parents who simply do not care. Household responsibilities or family life, lack of motivation, lacking a sense of belonging in school and COVID. And then we've got, some people who are agreeing on the importance of parent support in getting students to come to school. So let me ask you this: what
Really
impact?
quick, Christina,
Yeah,
we still have
sure.
somebody waiting.
Oh,
So
so
I just
sorry.
want to make sure they get a chance. So Peter, I know
sorry.
it's hard to it's hard to see both. So I totally tried to monitor. So Peter, see your hand up. Mhm. And if you're talking, I don't think we can hear you. I heard you I saw you come off mute, but we just don't hear you. So maybe to put something in the chat.
Yeah,
Guess if there's
maybe
an audio
okay.
problem. Okay, sorry about that.
So I am curious, what impact do you see
So
on
sorry.
academic?
I was cutting in and out too, so I'll make sure I'm with it. But I agree 100% with especially the things in the chat, those factors.
So did you say that you agree with the factors that were dropped into the chat?
No.
If you want to maybe drop any other comments in the chat, we can pick them up there as well. I think we're still having a hard time hearing you. So my next question was, what impact do you see from the student perspective on academic performance or social interactions, or in general, just the overall well-being of your peers who miss a lot of school? So again, impact on academic performance, social interactions, and overall well-being of students.
I do see a comment about this question from Seth. They seem to be having more troubled relationships with their teachers and turning in more late work.
Okay. One of you touched on this a little bit already, and that is the idea of technology and the role that it plays in whether or not students come to school. So if you think that that is an issue, have you seen any effective uses of technology that have been implemented that actually support school attendance?
And Nicholas, I see your hand up.
Yes, I'll answer both of those. First off, when you asked about, what if those individual students that are suffering from chronic absenteeism, like what's going on, what has changed? And most of the folks that I know that are chronically absent, they've been chronically absent since elementary school. I just think have been heightened since COVID. And kind of the factors that's already been mentioned, there was kind of a less importance brought on to school and, things at home, whatever it may be. And they have, especially with seniors graduating in May, in my case, they are really struggling to even meet requirements for graduation. Because they're getting to the point where they may graduate on stage, but they're going to have to come back a week later to do summer school, because we don't want to, throw anybody off of graduation. But that is a big thing that we're seeing, especially with some students. But when it comes to technology, what we've had to do kind of middle of the day attendance, because us seniors have a work study program where we go out during fourth period and we'll stay in the building with teachers and kind of have like a work relationship building thing so we can get, volunteer credits and such. And we've had to put a lot of emphasis on making sure that everybody turns in timesheets and that sort of thing, because there are a lot of kids who skip school and leave right after that. And we have had a lot of dual credit classes that have been fourth and seventh periods, so the start of the day and the end of the day, and they've completely removed that because there was a lot of kids that would do online through the community college and wouldn't show up to school or join virtually with their professor. So we've had to put some guardrails, I would say.
Okay. And did I understand you to say that you all took it out of the end of the day option?
Yes, and I believe what we have done is they're trying to get with the admissions folks from our local community college, Big Sandy, to make sure that they can be on the watch for that. So then that barrier could be released, because there's kids that really want to take classes in those periods, and we hate to, restrict that. But I think we're just trying to get a system in place that would accommodate those students while also making sure there's not an absentee problem.
Got you. Okay.
We have a couple great comments in the chat real quick before we get to the next speaker, but one is, I think technology has honestly hindered attendance due to resources like Google Classroom. Now more than ever, it is extremely easy to do everything at home, so people don't feel the need to show up if they can do the same work from the comfort of their own house. So I think that's very valid. I think they're actually seeing that in the adult workforce as well. So that is mirroring that. And then another comment, I've noticed that some course requirements and such tend to throw some folks off. Why do I need to take this course when I'll never use it after school? Waste of time and effort kind of thing. Yes, so that is absolutely why something like United We Learn is super important, because of the meaningful experiences, like building and making sure there's that connection to relevance and your life. And so if you don't see that connection, sometimes kids don't see the meaningfulness of being there. And then lastly, technology helps to give more exciting projects and give more scope to our research. Without it, I think students would see school as pointless because there would be less connections to the real world in our learning. Technology is here to stay. That's what I would say. It's not going anywhere. So the trick is it's not just a platform that can be freely implemented. There is professional learning that happens for educators to use technology effectively, as well as you all with knowing with your technology devices, there's proactive, productive ways to use it. And of course, you all probably know there's a lot of unproductive ways technology can impact learning. So I appreciate those comments. Anybody else before we, I guess, maybe move to strategies, because we're
Yep.
moving.
So the next one would be, what strategies do you think would be helpful to improve attendance? You know, think about anything that you might see in your school that seems to really be working. The other thing that maybe to think about and to touch on are peer-led initiatives. So in the last Student Advisory Council, I loved that you all talked about the Sources of Strength program, which is a peer-led program drawing on the mental health and suicide prevention components. So thinking about any strategies on the attendance side that you could partner with programs such as Sources of Strength that would also be peer-led, that would maybe help to encourage your peers to come to school. So anything that you can think of that would be barriers or maybe even potential solutions that you have seen as well. Hey, Peter?
Peter. We still can't hear
Yeah,
you, Peter. I'm so sorry. So maybe use the chat, and we have also Nicholas who's raised their hand.
Yep.
I would just add quickly, because I know I've input a lot. Anyhow, I know that Sources of Strength, at least from what I heard in the last.
Can you all hear me now? Can you all hear me?
Yes,
well, that's fine.
we can.
I'm gonna go in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Nicholas?
Okay, sorry about that.
Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you for being patient.
Yeah, you're good. What I wanted to add is from what I heard from folks that have Sources of Strength in their schools, whether they be teachers or students, is that it has, whether, in a very small percentage or in a large jump, it have helped attendance. Because at least from my experience, kids that I know, especially that I know that are very deep friends to me, if you tell them, hey, why don't you come to school tomorrow? And you put an emphasis after their friend to come to school, even if they don't want to, they will because of you. And if a teacher tries to do it, or a authority figure, guidance counselor, whoever it is, they have that kind of authority thing. You're not going to tell me what to do. But if it's, student-led, where everybody knows each other, I think that would be a great thing. I know things like Sources of Strength are hard to implement statewide because it's not applicable to every school. So some kind of program that would be universal, I think, would be beneficial, because they definitely listen to us if they're friends. Maybe not authority, but they will at least of their fellow students.
Right. And those peer-led initiatives offer a support structure, like you said, that is friend to friend, right? Or at least peer to peer. Even if they're not your friends, they're still your same age, and that carries a lot of credibility and a lot of weight, right? And same thing, the same thing happens when you become an adult too, right? You still lean on your peers for a lot of support. So does anybody else have anything else that they want to add? Looks like we've got maybe a couple. So Seth has added long-term projects and more engaging lessons tend to help. Also, mental health severely impacts attendance. Our mental health department and low sensory space definitely help, because you don't have to skip school just to take a break. Yep, having those support structures built in to the school environment are really helpful. So I appreciate you pointing that out. We have more hands-on projects. I think this could help students be more connected with their classes and help flourish relationships amongst themselves. Thank you for sharing that as well. Any other comments? I know that we have gone over our time just a little bit, so I do want to say thank you so much for allowing us to join you all today and for participating in this discussion. If you've got any additional feedback, if you want to advance to the next slide, we have given you all our contact information, and Florence and I are listed down there at the bottom. We encourage you and invite you to email us if you can think of any strategies that you might want schools or the state or your district to consider that we can put into our toolbox when we are crafting presentations and putting meetings together. But please feel free to email us, and if there's anything that we can help you all with, please let us know. And we appreciate our time, or appreciate you allowing us to join you, and thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Christina, Florence, and Rhonda for sharing this discussion and helping, and everyone on the call for helping share some ideas and strategies as well. I'll also share out the contact information for the presenters following today's meeting with the group as well. So thank you all. At this time, we will move forward, and Rima Dutt, the chair of the Commissioner Student Advisory Council, is on the call to provide an update about the Student Council's project regarding student voice. Rima, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So because we are a little tight on time today, we won't actually have time to work through the Student Voice project. However, I just kind of want to explain like the game plan leading up to the April 24th meeting. So if you don't already know, the next Student Advisory Council meeting is in person in Frankfurt, April 24th. And our goal is to present our overall project there to stakeholders. So in the meantime, we do have to draft up this report, but we kind of have all the components done and ready. So Glyptis Ann, will it let me share my screen on here? If not, that's okay. I can share the document.
If you have an option that says share screen, go ahead. And if not, then you can drop it in the chat.
Okay. Can you all see like a Google Doc? Yes. Okay, perfect. So basically the layout of this report, I kind of just wanted to share this so you could get a sense. But there's basically 4 parts. So the first is just an introduction. And in our May 30th meeting, everyone unmuted and shared in their definition what student voice is. So we have the notes linked right here. And I will be sharing this document with you all after this meeting. But what we need to do with this is we have everything. We just have to type it up into like a summary paragraph for the introduction of the student voice piece. Then part 2, in our September and October meetings, we talked a lot about why we're interested in this project. And we think it's really important to share with these stakeholders because a lot of people dismiss student voice as it's not important, and having our perspectives accounted in this report, not only the people we interviewed, but us as a council, I think is really important. So we have the why we are interested document, which is just like a transcript of the meeting with like everyone quoting like or writing why this project's important. And then we also have a history and brief summary of student voice research that we can use to kind of like elevate our voice if we just want to like link those with some of the quotes to support our claims. And then after that, we're just going to introduce the council, because if people are reading this report, they might not know, what is the KDE Student Advisory Council? So that's just going to be a brief like paragraph of like who we are and what we do and why we're doing projects like this. And then the third part is kind of the big part of the report, which is where all of our work will be displayed. But it's going to highlight the 4 interviews we did in our January meeting. So I sent an email, I want to say last week, that kind of linked every single group's transcription and notes. And I've seen that over the past week, you guys have highlighted pull-out quotes that we want to include in this report. So what we're going to do is almost have a page of just these important quotes from these stakeholders, because they have credibility behind their name, because they're in these superintendent positions or in these teaching positions. And they are going to be quoted anonymously, but we'll have their role on there. And sorry, I have to go. Okay. And this is going to be the bulk of the report, so maybe 1 to 2 pages of this. And also, the last part is going to be the conclusion. So rather than talking about recommendations, we think that we should keep this conversation going. So we're going to have a pacing guide for the end, which is basically going to include the 5 questions we use during our interviews and encouraging people to ask people in their schools, people in administration, to keep this conversation going so we can create tangible change, because obviously introducing this in a state legislator can seem very radical, but it's a lot easier to create smaller changes within your schools to slowly work up in the system. So we have this pacing guide. So between now and April 12th, we have around 2 weeks to draft this out. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't mute for that. I really apologize for my cough, guys, but we have until now and April 12th to create a draft of this. Again, we have all the notes, so this should be pretty easy to do, but I will be sending up a follow-up email. And then from April 12th to April 24th, if you're interested in presenting at the 24th meeting, just respond to the email, and it'll probably have a Zoom call in between, or a Microsoft Teams call in between that time frame to do a prep session. So
Thank you, Rima, and we look forward to having additional information you'll share out by email. So council members, please be on a lookout for additional information from Rima. Rima, thank you for presenting that update. If you all have any questions about the project, feel free to include those in our exit slip, and we will share those over to Rima and our Vice Chair of the Council, Bentley White. And at this time, I think I'm sharing the screen again. To conclude our meeting, we'll kind of wrap up with an opportunity to hear from our student members, as well as to share just one quick update that might be of interest to you, council members, or people, your peers in your school. As always, we encourage you to check out the bulletin board on Kentucky Teacher, on the Kentucky Department of Education's flagship publication, Kentucky Teacher. And one of the items on the bulletin board was a call for submissions for the 2024 KET Young Writers Contest. And it's a writing contest open for students in pre-K through grade 12. Please note the submission deadline is Friday, March 31st. They are seeking submissions across 4 categories of writing: illustrated story, short story, poetry, and graphic novels. If that's of interest to you or your peers, look for additional information on the website linked on the slide. And so I will pause now and ask if there are any other updates or share outs from members of the group. Feel free to raise your hand or unmute or share your update or announcement in the chat. I see Nicholas.
Ms. Jones, I just wanted to pop in real quick. On Saturday, the Kentucky Student Voice Team will be hosting another Rose Revival Forum, which are welcoming all students, teachers, parents, etc. To the Carnegie Center of Learning and Literacy on Transylvania's campus in Lexington. And I know we have a lot of folks from around the Central Kentucky region. So if any of y'all would like to attend, it's from 2 to 4:30, I believe. Of course, no fee needed, just attend at your own pleasure. But if you'd like any more information, you can reach out to me, Rima, or anybody else affiliated with KSVT in the group.
And I think Rima may have dropped a link in the chat with that announcement as well. Seth shared, I was recently admitted to an undergrad program for medical research at Duke University. Congratulations, Seth. As Dr. Sweeney mentioned earlier in the call, I know many of you are preparing for spring break and a break from your school activities. So we encourage you all to take advantage of that break, and I look forward to seeing you. Some additional comments of congratulating Seth in the chat, but we encourage you to take note of our next Student Advisory Council meeting. I've included on the slide here the meeting date. It's in person at KDE on our 5th floor. Wednesday, April 24, scheduled from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Please, on today's exit slip, please let us know if you plan on attending. We have some registration information included on the exit slip so we can better prepare for the in-person meeting. And for members eligible to receive travel reimbursement, you will be sent additional information to your email. So please be on the lookout for that as well. Please, please note the April 1 deadline to respond and let us prepare arrangements for our upcoming in-person meeting. That concludes my announcements. I will pause to see if there are any additional notes or share-outs before we adjourn today's meeting. And seeing and hearing none. Oh, Commissioner Kinney's here.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Jones for the excellent job that she does in organizing the Student Advisory Council. And also a big thanks to our interpreters that always come and help us each time with all of our meetings. Everyone have a safe spring break. If you're traveling, be careful. That's the mom in me that's always coming out saying, please be careful when you go. But I hope you all have a good break and come back strong for the end of the school year.
Thank you for those kind remarks. I definitely echo the sentiment. Enjoy spring break and as always, be safe. So that concludes our meeting today. Thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you on April 24 and we're returning 8 minutes of your time today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.